Hey, Yetis, this is Nick and Jack from the Best One Yet podcast. Now, the last company we worked at, they used Paylocity and everything just worked. It wasn't until launching our own media business, this show, that we realized how rare that is.
Because Paylocity is one delicious burrito of operational needs. They roll up HR, finance, and IT seamlessly into one delicious bite.
When everything wraps together like that all at once, your workforce, your tech stack, your business, you don't need more tools. You don't even need cilantro.
You need one solution.
And that is why Paylocity built a single platform to connect HR, finance, and IT with AI-driven insights and automated workflows that simplify the complex and power what's next.
Or as we call it, a delicious operational burrito.
Yes, we do. Experience a one place for all your HCM needs, besties.
So start now at Paylocity.com/one.
Paylocity.com/ONE.
Business is booming, but you know what really helped? Xero, the accounting platform for small businesses. I used to think unpaid bills were just part of it. Ugh. But batch payments? Wow. Automated accounts payable? Even better. All in one place. That's a big one. And I can keep track from my phone while I get the job done. No bills in sight. What a life. Do right by yourself and your business and search XERO for your free trial. Conditions apply.
Blowing ad budget on metrics that look great till the CFO sees them. That's bull spend. And marketers are calling it out in Dashboard Confessions.
I remember telling my boss, it'll be good for the brand, when leads were slow. Yeah, it wasn't.
Cut the bull spend. LinkedIn lets you target by company, job title, and more. Advertise on LinkedIn. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a $250 credit. Go to linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tech Magic, the podcast where we journey into the heart of technology. I am joined by my co-host, Lee Kebler, as usual. Lee, how you doing?
I'm great, enjoying the summer. Probably not as much as you are today. We're starting our own summer travels right now, so I think we're heading out tomorrow to go have some fun.
Oh, that's great. Are you going anywhere fun?
Well, it depends on how you define it. We're going to go camping. Some people don't like camping. I like camping. So we're going to go to South Oregon and through an area of our state that I'm not that familiar with, to be completely honest. So I don't know what to expect. But yeah, that's as far as I know. But we've got some friends who live down there, so we're going to go rough it for a little bit. I say rough it. It's not roughing it. It's glamping.
Glamping. I'm not a camping person. Glamping? Yes, let's do glamping. I'm all for that. Well, I'm actually recording right now from Virginia Beach, from a beachfront hotel that's really pretty near the Cavalier, which is like a 1920s old hotel from the olden days. It's still here. But yeah, we come here every year with my kids. It's kind of usually one of the things we do at the beginning of summer. They love it. Yeah, I mean, the summer started for us officially in that sense. We're doing all the travels. We got all the beach travel, all the fun stuff. My kids are going to sleepaway camp soon. So yeah, I mean, summer is in full swing for us.
Summer in Oregon, especially like summer solstice, is a big deal in Portland because we have incredibly long days when we finally get to the summer. Like it doesn't even really get dusk until like 9:45, 10 o'clock. It's always a lot of fun this time of year. But anyways, yes, it is finally summer and we're all finally glad the sun's back out. We're a pretty cloudy city most of the year.
Well, here it's actually nice weather now. We had a bit of a storm, but looking great. I mean, I'm just thrilled to be making memories with my loved ones and spending time with them. You know?
Okay, this is getting a little geeky, but I know you're a fan of like the spatial videos and the spatial photos. How's that playing? Are you like capturing all of that in those spatial pieces of content?
Not everything, but like if there's something really special, like we just saw some dolphins, for example, like a family of dolphins out on the water. We see them every year when we come. I don't know if it's the same dolphins, right? But we always see dolphins out there. So I definitely did spatial video of my kids looking at the dolphins and stuff like that. So if it's like something special that I want to hold on to, yes, I'm definitely, that's the reason I got the iPhone 15 Pro Max, because I could shoot spatial video. And one of the reasons you and I have discussed, one of the reasons I think the mass market eventually is going to want more spatial. Maybe that's a great way to go into a lot of the stuff that's going on. So let's talk a little bit about some of the new announcements from Apple. Some of the things here that are really interesting is the new AirPods are probably going to have some type of camera and some type of support for more spatial experiences. So being able to work with the Vision Pro a lot better for spatial video, being able to provide more spatial audio, even more immersive. So that's a really interesting development.
Wait, did you say AirPods?
AirPods. The AirPods are going to get some type of camera or something to be able to create better experiences, spatial video and audio experiences for the Vision Pro, but also in general. So yeah, I mean, spatial computing.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's just shocking how accessible and small cameras have gotten, even if they're just like sensory, to be able to see the space around it and go forward with saying like, okay, we're going to start putting these in headphones, that's when you just know we're hitting a level of the future where it's like, yeah, movies and TV shows never even predicted putting cameras in headphones. But like, yeah, if you want to be able to be spatially aware of sounds and where things are coming from, it's just wild we can even do that. It's just crazy.
Yeah, I'll read this further explanation. So Apple will launch new AirPods featuring infrared cameras to improve spatial experiences with the Vision Pro headset and in general, full spatial audio and spatial experiences. So yeah, like that's one of the things I'm really excited about. I mean, I'm literally using my AirPods right now and I use my AirPods Max. Like I use all of these types of headphones. So excited about that. That actually comes aligned. And I'll share this. So I run this group or community on WhatsApp. It's got over like 2,500 members. And I share a lot of stuff there. And I actually shared a TED Talk from the latest TED event in Vancouver from Jason Rugolo. The talk is about audio computers. And it's pretty much computers that can like focus on a specific sound or cut out different sounds. Like there's a demo he did live where it's like these people having, I think, lunch or dinner. And he says, let me focus more on what this person's saying or block out the baby crying in the background, or I don't speak Spanish. Can you do an automatic translation into English? So like kind of the stuff that we've seen with the use of AI. But once again, the AI has to live somewhere. It is some hardware device. He calls it audio computers. And, to me, audio computers would be a type of hardware for spatial computing, right? To enable that type of spatialized experience. So yeah, like definitely a really good watch if people are looking for more, TED inspiration on where things are heading when it comes to cameras, audio, the things that we're putting in our ears and how that enables spatial.
It really is kind of one of those moments where Apple is taking the lead from such a like Bose. You'd expect to see this type of experimental concept from a Bose company. I say that because like they invented noise canceling, right? They've been around for a very long time. They definitely take risks on their products. I think they've taken less risks in the most recent years, but I had a pair of these Sony noise canceling headphones and they work so well. And it finally just spurred me to say, wait, how does noise canceling actually work? Because it feels like magic, and it kind of is once you pull it apart, how it just does negative frequencies and matches it. And it's a very kind of old school way of spatial computing in very real term, where it takes a look at the frequencies around you and then just creates the negative frequencies to balance it out. And that's why when you're wearing them, if you happen to hear like a car drive by, it's because that wasn't in that frequency spectrum before. But it's been around for decades. Like I think it was something crazy like 40 years or more. And it was just invented by the founder of Bose because he was tired of hearing stuff. So he went out and figured out how to do it. So a company that has done so much for that space to kind of, I don't want to say get usurped, but kind of get usurped by the likes of Apple, who's just sitting there going, we bought Beats and now we're going to go do this. I do wonder how much of the Beats acquisition it played into their understanding of speakers and where that came from.
I'm sure it did. I mean, I'm sure that was thinking about that in the car the other day about Apple Music and everything, and Beats and the acquisition and all that. I will say, now that you bring up Bose, one of my favorite products of all time, and they're not even around anymore, the Bose AR glasses, it was just audio. It wasn't really AR.
Yeah, I did like those. It was just
audio. Those are bone conduction, beautiful, seamless. One of the best experiences I've had with hardware. That was quite simple. I mean, the Ray-Bans do that a little bit. But yeah, I mean, those Bose glasses, it was augmented audio, but they were really early. I remember they used to have an augmented reality evangelist. Gosh, I cannot remember his name, but I met him back in like 2019 at an event. And yeah, I mean, those glasses, and if anyone had them, those were ahead of their time in reality.
Yeah, I do remember seeing those in like a Best Buy years ago and thinking how cool they were. Just the ability to put them on and not have to wear like headphones was just stellar. But at the end of the day, I'm the type of guy who, like, especially back then, would leave their sunglasses in a movie theater and not think twice about it. That really was what held me back.
Well, you know what I do with my Ray-Bans, my Meta Ray-Ban glasses? The cost is what, like $300? They're not too expensive. At least in my perspective, it's not an expensive product. It's a wonderful product.
Especially for like Ray-Bans, right? Like in the grand scheme of like
the grand
things,
scheme of
I'm
things.
kind of surprised how inexpensive they are.
I'm sure it's getting subsidized in some ways. But what I've been doing is I take them on trips, and if I find someone, like, I'll give it to that person. In Germany, I left them at DLD for someone. Then when I went on safari, I gave them to the guide because I said, you could record so many amazing like animal videos with this. And I got a pitch the other day about how Meta Ray-Ban sunglasses are the must-have. That's what the PR team is saying, right? The must-have for travel and being present. And I mean, I do believe that. I love my Ray-Ban glasses, my Meta Ray-Bans for recording. And by the way, the quality of the video is amazing. I have to tell you, like, I'm so impressed with it.
I'm holding out for some type of heads-up display. Like, that is kind of the thing that I'm looking for. I know it's right around the corner, and this will be a story that we get to here shortly, but as soon as you can wear sunglasses and get like that instant translation or something of that nature, I'm so excited for it. That's going to be a big deal. And I think we're really close. If they can take what they're doing with Ray-Bans and combine it with something as simplistic as what Google tried to do with Google Glass, doesn't have to be that complex. It just can be that pairing, and I'm there.
Yeah. And I mean, Ray-Bans are already multimodal, so like they can take pictures. We're getting to that point. We're not fully there yet. That being said, I'm going to go back to Apple a little bit. So there had been news last week that Apple Intelligence was not going to come to the Apple Vision Pro. It seems that was wrong. Bloomberg is reporting and other folks are reporting that Apple Intelligence is going to come to the Apple Vision Pro, which is really exciting, especially as Apple Vision Pro rolls out across the globe.
I thought that was strange because the Vision Pro has an M2 processor with the R1 doing most of the heavy lifting for its like spatial processing. And that would be insinuating like that M2 computers couldn't handle it or something like that, which made no sense. And this really is where it's still a head scratcher to me for Apple's design. We're not seeing a ton of seamless pairing between the headset to the phone, which I think the entire world expected, because that just seemed like the logical step for a company like Apple. But we're not seeing that yet. But I can't imagine that's not around the corner, to which case your phone could offload all of that Apple Intelligence functionality. But it's not in there yet. I can't imagine that it's not right around the corner. That'd be silly.
Like we've mentioned on the podcast before, the Vision Pro in its current state does not pair with your phone that well, like doesn't really offload any of the compute to the phone, right? I think a cheaper version probably will, right? A Apple Vision Lite, whatever they decide to call it, right? It's probably going to offload some of the compute there, and that would make total sense.
The Apple Vision Cardboard?
No, God, no. Don't take me back to the Google Cardboard days, please. No. Oh my gosh. I remember those days when you had to put you had to have all these Samsung phones or Google, to be able to put in, God, don't not take me back to the cardboard days. I mean, early days, right?
It had its need. It was a good thing to kind of break the ice, but that's about it.
Doing demos with cardboard or the other Samsung, no, thank you. That was brutal.
It just never worked. The phone was not the right device for that. But
man,
yeah, I think we're going to see it around the corner, and especially with the announcement of them streamlining to a new Vision Pro or a new Vision whatever. But the idea that it wouldn't support Apple Intelligence would, in my opinion, do more damage to the actual moniker of Pro than anything. It kind of has to. Otherwise, you're just throwing around silly words, which Apple does do, but they usually have some semblance of meaning behind them. I can't fathom a Pro product that they're selling not supporting their Apple Intelligence. That's just crazy.
Yeah. So no, and it makes total sense, right? Tie the AI to the Vision Pro and eventually start making it more useful. So yeah, I'm excited about that. I think we're going to see a lot of movement there. And then the thing is, my beef with a lot of people is oh, the Vision Pro is a failure. I'm the first iPhone was necessarily a success. The first, Apple Watch wasn't necessarily a success. This is a roadmap towards new hardware. And yeah, I mean, the Vision Pro, maybe people are not thinking about it as much, and it's not kind of a focus of a lot of things, but it is starting a new market category. It's one of the first, I call it an early spatial computer. It's going to lead to more and more devices and more things being incorporated into having spatial experiences.
I don't think that the failure is in the hardware at all. I think the hardware is spectacular. I mean, there's some design flaws for sure that focus around weight and some capabilities, but there are some areas that it's absolutely stellar in. And the iPhone had the same thing. If I had to point to a failure, it would be the development process is not as streamlined as what we saw when the iPhone launched. And that is holding back a lot of the growth of the App Store. That has to get solved. That is a weight around Apple's neck that absolutely needs to find some type of resolution. Otherwise, you're going to continually have an empty Apple Store with a bunch of converted apps, which is not what you want.
Yeah, which is not the point. Like we mentioned before, like I really think Apple should have some type of, they have a developer program, but more like a way to incentivize more developers, giving them money to create things. You know, they give them support. Yes, like they give us developer support. You can go to one of these developer boot camps and there's a lot of stuff like that. But I think an actual program like many of the companies have, like Meta, for example, has, I think those are really critical for incentivizing developers and creating a lot more excitement. So definitely that. I think we will see an increased interest in development as well as it rolls out globally. Like it just rolled out in Apple stores in China, Hong Kong, Japan, and Singapore. I was talking to friends in Singapore that people are really excited. I mean, Singapore is really, tech forward.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Even like Esquire Singapore wrote a whole feature. I'm really excited to see how this does in the Asian market, in some of these economies that are a lot more mobile first, a lot more tech first than we are maybe some parts of the Western world are.
It'll be interesting to see, especially as it goes into China, because China has access to hardware that we just don't have, as we look at like Huawei and the Pico and these other headsets that have done a pretty good, especially HTC. While we don't think about the Vive and the HTC line too much in the Western market, is very well installed in the Asian market. And so that whole market has really held on to HTC's. And you can kind of see it in their marketing. Like HTC pretty much just does headsets now. I don't even know if they're doing phones in the Western market anymore.
They sold that business. Like they sold a big part of their HTC phone business to Google and other companies.
Yeah. So
full disclosure, I used to work there.
Right. China specifically, I think they actually have more competition than they do here. Like their competition here is by and large Meta. But as they go to an area where like the Pico is a good headset, it just has struggled to break into the Western market. Huawei, I'm sure, has fantastic headsets that will never see the light of day in the Western market. It'll be interesting to see what it does.
Yeah. And talking about HTC, I do want to mention this for anyone listening to the podcast. Like HTC is looking for a spatial computing growth lead. So I think that they've always done great work here in the American market, but I think they're going to push forward with spatial computing.
Their headsets are the most interesting to me.
Wow. Okay.
They've got a form factor. I'm a big form factor person. This is why the Vision Pro, to me, if there was a hardware disappointment, it was definitely form factor. I was not into the Vision Pro's form factor, and I'm kind of bored with Meta's form factor, if I'm being completely honest. But as I look at like HTC, they're really pushing the boundaries of form factor when it comes to headsets, which I think has a lot to do with making the hardware interesting to a younger adopting. So like they've made a big push for kind of modular design. If you want facial tracking, it is an add-on to the headset. Otherwise, it can dumb down to where it's barely larger than a pair of glasses. Or it can go full VR headset depending on how far you want to like build your actual mobile headset out. That's not something we're seeing elsewhere. And I think it sets it quite far apart. Even if you want like facial tracking, eye tracking, whatever it is, this is what I mean by they're thinking beyond the headset. They're working on body trackers that are affordable and much smaller for people who utilize systems like VR chat or similar that want to, or even want to do like their own mocap for animation or whatever. This goes into the whole VTuber craze that is slowly growing, but I think has legs. Sony is also kind of doing a lot in the tracker space, but it's just wild to me that we just don't see that coming from Meta or the likes of Apple.
I mean, I'm sure that they have lots of R&D and skunkworks stuff around trackers. Like, I'm sure there's no way that they don't.
They've never had a tracking puck, either one of those companies.
Do we need them at all in reality? Like, I'm going to be honest, Lee, like, I just feel like the cost of like mocap and like tracking, it's got to become cheaper. Like, it's a lot cheaper. It's a lot easier now. I mean, the tracking on the Vision Pro is amazing.
I'm going to say that it's not.
Interesting.
Yes.
Why?
The eye tracking on the Vision Pro is amazing.
Okay.
Its static tracking in the world is amazing. When you pull it back, the hand tracking on the Vision Pro, as it currently stands, is some of the worst I've ever seen.
Really? For me, it's seamless. I think it's magic.
It's seamless because you're seeing your hands, but because you're actually seeing the pass through, it's got great pass through. So you're seeing your hands. So you're not seeing that delay as your hand moves when it's actually tracking, when it's trying to move a virtual object. So if you go and you play a game like Synth Riders, fantastic game, but you can see it in Synth Riders where your hand is supposed to have an object attached to it. And it's just like loosely.
Is there a lag when you're playing Synth Riders?
Massive amount of lag. And this is the thing that Meta has really tuned in on a much cheaper headset that keeps my head scratching, because the Vision Pro has way more power than a Meta headset. Arguably $2,500 more power.
Yeah. A lot more cameras too.
And a lot more cameras. So it is weird to me, the Vision Pro's lag on its hand. And I'm going into the weeds on development, but those who are developers who listen to our podcast are probably sitting in their cars or wherever they're listening to, nodding their head. Yeah, this is a real issue. And they've got to nail that down. They've done a really good job masking it. You don't notice it as a user, but as a developer, it's what's keeping a lot of interactive games from becoming immersive.
Maybe that's why, because I'm using it more for productivity and working.
Totally. Yeah.
For that, like the tracking is perfect. Like I have no issue. It's perfect if I'm, if I'm on the plane and I don't want to put the computer on top of my table. I just literally have everything, tracking is great, right? If I'm at home or working it for productivity. I use it for gaming, but I don't use it for gaming that much. So maybe that's why I see the difference. From a business perspective or productivity, I think it works perfectly fine.
It is. It's
right?
perfect.
But yeah, but I think that's a very valid point when it comes to interactive games. So maybe I should play some Synth Riders and
go play some Synth Riders. You'll see it.
Yeah,
You'll feel
I gotta play
You'll
some Synth Riders
feel
now
it on your Apple Vision Pro, and then go play it on your Meta headset.
I've got it on my Meta headset, so I'll see the difference. For sure.
The team at Kludge is amazing. Please understand, this has nothing to do with Synth Riders. It's a great game. The team at Kludge, they're fantastic. This is not their fault. This is a hardware issue that has got to get resolved between those headsets for sure.
So let's do this. Let's go on break. And when we get back, we're going to dive deep into some of the things happening at Meta and Reality Labs that we're really excited about. So we'll talk about some Meta when we get back. All right, Lee. So let's talk about things happening at Meta. I'm so excited about all the things I'm starting to see and hear from them. I'll just share this. I'm part of the Summit community, Summit events. And in one of the groups that I'm in, someone was saying about buying a headset. And I said, why don't you wait a little bit? I said, wait till September, because I have a feeling that Meta's going to introduce something amazing. I don't know. That's just me from seeing all the little crumbs. I'm kind of saying, okay, there's probably something big coming. But then Mark Zuckerberg has talked publicly on a podcast about almost being ready to reveal a prototype that left early testers giddy of their AI holographic glasses. Andrew Bosworth is doing tons of AMAs on Instagram. He has previously said that it's the most advanced piece of technology on the planet in its domain. I don't know anyone yet that has tried them or that would talk to me publicly about trying these AR holographic glasses, but I'm excited. I don't know if holographic is the right word, if there is a light field or not, because true hologram has to use a light field. I think it's a cool word to use. Anyway, excited. I mean, if everyone's giddy of the testers who are tech people mostly, I would guess, or people that understand some of this technology are giddy. I mean, imagine how giddy we're going to be when we actually get to, to tease.
I honestly think it's exactly what I was talking about in the last segment, where we're going to see the Ray-Bans that have some type of correlation with like the Google Glass theory concept. That just seems to me like they can't do another Ray-Bans release without it. It wouldn't make any sense at that point. It's what everyone's waiting for. I think we all expected it last go around. What we got was cool.
Well, they were very focused on AI. Like last Meta Connect, the focus was AI and, AI agents and virtual influencers and all that stuff. So I understand why the mixed reality and spatial computing part of it wasn't as highly focused. I mean, there was some AR, obviously, but the main focus was AI. I feel like they're going to hit us really hard with AI, but also the work that they're doing at Reality Labs at Meta Connect. So I hope we get to go. I hope we get an invite.
And as we saw last week, their AI is expanding all the way to Apple. Apple's talking about a partnership with them as well. I've been watching the latest season of The Bear on Hulu, and I've seen so many Meta AI ads in the commercial breaks where I was just like, wow, they're really pushing actual marketing behind this without pushing directly to a tool, just saying like, this is what you're going to be utilizing our new platform for, to the point where I've watched a couple of ads pop up where it looked like they were pushing Facebook to a search engine.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, some of the ads that I've seen the last couple of days, and they all seem to be when you're watching the bear, because if I watch something else and it's not popping up, they know where people are watching right now.
Their target market is watching the bear. That makes 100% sense, right? So no, I get it.
I've watched a couple of those ads where it was like showing people using Facebook kind of as a search engine to replace like YouTube tutorials and things like that. So they've got a vision that they're putting together where all of this does kind of tie in together. And this goes back to Apple's theory of AI is a feature, not a product. I think that they're following suit and they're worth watching. Maybe Facebook's not out yet.
I'm very bullish on Meta, to be honest, extremely bullish on them. You know, I do think that they're marketing AI. They're talking a lot about open source, but I think as a company, they need to market AI, but kind of tie it into the bigger idea and the concept of everything that they're doing, not only with the apps, but the hardware, right? Because for a lot of people, the hardware side has been a head scratcher for them, not for you and me and our listeners, right? It makes total sense that this has to live somewhere and it's going to live on the hardware. So, you know, hence why it's so important. But yeah, I think that from an AI marketing perspective for Meta, having a clear message as to why they're pushing into AI, how AI is useful in everyday life, how AI can help us do things better, faster, et cetera. But also, what does this mean in, in the longer view of spatial computing? They've used the term spatial computing. Boz has used it, right? But at the end of the day, I'm excited. I'm truly excited about what Meta's building. And I think we mentioned this in one of the last episodes, but I'll mention it again, is that Reality Labs as an organization within Meta is structuring their departments a little bit different. They're putting a central metaverse kind of department or organization, and then a new wearables organization. So they're kind of creating a little bit of division there between metaverse, which is the future state of today's mobile internet, and the hardware, which becomes the new spatial computers, new audio computers, and new whatever computers. So I think this division is important. This division is a clear example of, there's many different components to spatial computing. We're not just talking about the metaverse, and the metaverse is not the same as spatial computing. So yeah, I think it's important to mention that.
Well, and it makes a lot of sense because what they're basically doing, it seems like, is they're taking a very software over here, hardware over here approach, which isn't a bad thing. And then those two departments have to work together. It kind of does a good job of creating standards. Those are things you kind of do want siloed. So I see why they would do that. And it also allows for established partnerships, especially on the hardware side, so that their software side can potentially go and live elsewhere, right? I'm going to say something pretty extreme here, but I kind of am looking at Meta as the new Google, not as the new Apple, but as the new Google. And that's a pretty strong thing to say. But I'm going to be honest, Google, while I'm a fan and I love my Pixel phone, they're not that innovative. They've fallen behind in areas where Meta's just kind of been there to pick up the pieces. And a lot of that has to do with turnover of ideas. Meta doesn't seem to let go of a good idea. They'll get it to where it needs to go. They'll keep putting their funds into it. They'll keep putting resources into it to get to the end vision, where we've watched now for the past almost 20 years, Google say, if it's not a hit out of the gate, we drop it. There's a value to the idea of fail fast, but Google doesn't even allow it to breathe sometimes before they're just like cutting it out. And I've never understood that about them as a company. The stuff that they do hold on to typically does very well over time, but they let go of some pretty good ideas. Meta doesn't do that. So I'm seeing them put these division silos together makes even more longevity. It makes more sense.
I mean, and kudos to Mark and to Boz for creating that division. I mean, for me, it's so clear. And I'll mention something because I think it's interesting and it's aligned to this conversation around metaverse and hardware and kind of how they're two different things. I got my friend Matthew Ball, fellow Metaverse pioneer, sent me an advanced copy of the fully revised and updated edition of the Metaverse. It's called the Metaverse, and he changed the second line, which is Building the Spatial Internet. 70% of this book is new. I'm reading it. It is amazing. I mean, very much aligned to how I view spatial computing, spatial web. Matthew has all my respect. Thank you for sending me an advance copy. We're going to have him on the show for an extended interview about the book and about everything that he's dealing with here. There's a whole new chapter on AI because when he released this before, AI was important, but it wasn't what it is right now. So it's almost like you're getting a new book. I mean, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled for Matthew. July 23rd is when the book comes out. So you can actually pre-order it at ballmetaversebook.com, or you can find it on Amazon. The last one was a bestseller. I'm sure he's going to do great. And I personally think the fact that I already have a spatial computing book, he's now moving this version into spatial. I think that's just going to help the industry move forward and get a better understanding of what we're talking about when we're talking about things that are spatial in nature. So yeah, big shout out to Matthew on the new revised version of the book. It really is like a new book. It's like he wrote a new book. So congratulations.
No, that's fantastic. I'm looking forward to that interview. It's interesting, right? Because I think that there's a level of the LinkedIn zeitgeist of people who get really down on how quickly we're changing terms or trends or things like that. And I think people look at what's defined as the hype cycle a little bit too earnestly, in the sense that a lot of this isn't chasing trends as much as we're trying to keep up with technology. It isn't a switch from one to the other. It is a natural progression or evolution of these technologies as we figure out how we actually use them in everyday life and what that looks like. It needs a little bit of that grace to be able to say, okay, yes, we are still using terms like metaverse. It's not a out of vogue term to switch for AI and AI is the new shiny object. I've heard that so many times. And that's not it. It is literally, okay, we had a definition of X, Y, and Z. Now we have a new definition of A, B, and C, and they're all in the same alphabet. So how do we spell words with this? And that's where we currently are. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I fully understand how AI interacts with spatial computing. I just know that it will because it has to. And that's just the progress this technology has.
Well, there's a whole book written by Cathy Hackl and Irina Cronin about AI and spatial.
There you go.
Which maybe I should send you a copy, Lee.
I'm still waiting on you. Said you were, and it hasn't arrived
Yeah.
yet.
Well, you're traveling, so I'm going to wait till you get back from glamping. That's my excuse. But I will say, I mean, humans have to create new language. Like with technology, with all these things, we have to create new words and new language. And is it what we create now, what we're going to call it later? Who knows? That being said, when people talk about like chasing trends or stuff like that, I've heard it all before, right? For me, it's like when I went into Magic Leap, that was one of the best educations of my life in that sense, because we were already talking about spatial computing and we were talking about the Magicverse, which was their version of the Metaverse, as separate things, right? We worked in spatial computing, we created spatial computers, and the Magicverse was one of our North Stars. So for me, it's always been a clear division between what spatial computing is and what the Metaverse or the spatial web, right? The successor state to today's mobile internet, whether we call it the spatial internet, the spatial web, or the metaverse, whatever term we want to use. To me, these are separate things. From my education from Magic Leap, an early spatial computing company, it's been very clear to me. I think that, when people start to say spatial computing is another word for mixed reality, I'm like, well, and we have, like, I feel like we've all done that. Like we've done like, oh, this is spatial computing, but it's mixed reality. Like there's still that confusion. But for me, spatial computing is not another word for metaverse. It's not another word for mixed reality. Spatial computing is a bigger thing. Mixed reality is a technology within spatial. And I'll be honest, like I sat down with the World Economic Forum for the annual meeting of new champions and did a recording with them, very in-depth on spatial computing, the different parts of spatial. They put out this really amazing little video that has just the basics on what this is at a very high level. And I've gotten so much amazing feedback from it. So many people have seen the video. I mean, it's World Economic Forum. So we're talking about millions of people paying attention to this. So a lot of like my friends at Capgemini or Accenture or BCG or some of the big Fortune 50 companies reaching out and saying, I love the video. I'm glad we're talking about spatial computing and what AI has to do with it, because I do address that in the video very lightly. But yeah, it's been well received. And I'm just thrilled that I can be one of those people out there trying to create an understanding of what we're talking about. We're talking about the evolution of the web and also the expansion of computing. So yeah, I think we're going to continue to see more interest as we move forward when it comes to what spatial computing is.
Yeah, I've always, even in the early days when we were looking at WebXR, we're talking like 2016, 2017, I've always considered it as like the point in which we move away from web pages to websites, right? What does it mean when our connectivity has three-dimensional space and the computers can see everything around us and utilize that as part of that integration. And we're just now, a decade later, starting to fully grasp what that means. And I think we're still probably 5 years from seeing it to a full adoption. And I don't mean that in a headset way. I mean that just as in...
Yeah, and how we engage with content. It's about the interfaces, like creating these new interfaces, whether it's website, whether it is a headset, whether it is audio computers in your ear, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. And I've seen that even utilizing new mobile phone technology. A lot of my phone is done, I don't want to say in voice command, but kind of in voice command as I'm starting to use like AirPods or my Google headphones a little bit more, because it's got AI now built into the Pixel. So as I'm talking to it, it has a much better understanding of what I'm trying to do logically. I'm seeing the disconnect though, as I ask it to pull up. We talked about the TuneIn application last episode. I'm still a fan of the TuneIn application. However, it's an audio app. And when I ask it to pull something up, it sometimes forces a video ad, which is just a disconnect from how that app should work, right? And I don't necessarily blame them. It's just that they've got a structure that is no longer functioning in the way that I think Google or like Apple is expecting their phones to work. If they want us to be able to communicate directly to it, okay, fine, play your audio ad. That's fine, especially if you can tell that my screen is off. But if you can't serve your application with the screen off, that's going to become a problem, because that's definitely the direction that things are going.
Since we're talking about this and we're planning to take the month of August off, right? To give ourselves a break, and also our listeners, we will have some pre-recorded shows dropping and stuff, but everyone's taking the summer off. I do want to talk about one of the shows that I think we should have an in-depth episode. We're going to have the in-depth long version interview with Matthew Ball, of course, but also I think we should dive deep into different types of AI models. Obviously large language models are all the rave, but I want us to talk more deeply about what large vision models are, large action models are. There was an article that came out in TechCrunch recently about MIT robotics pioneer Rodney Brooks thinks people are vastly overestimating generative AI. And he talks more so here about specifically LLMs. So he's running a new robotics company. And there's a quote here. He says this: when you have 10,000 orders, so it's for warehouses, right? When you have 10,000 orders that just came in and that you have to ship in 2 hours, you have to optimize for that. Language is not going to help. It's just going to slow things down, he said. We have a massive data processing and massive AI optimization technique and planning, and that's how we're going to get the orders completed fast. So using vision, using data, using all this data layer to optimize. So I'm not saying I agree with him, but I think he's alluding more to moving from language into more of that large vision and large action models to get things done in the physical world.
I agree with that, but there's also another layer to this that we have and I do think this has fallen out because of the LinkedIn zeitgeist. My neighbor asked me a very poignant question. It came out of the blue. I just got a text message from him, which is normally like, hey, can you go close my gate or something like that?
My cat's out or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That actually is one that we get quite often. But his question was really thought-provoking, and it was simple. He simply said, define the difference between machine learning and artificial intelligence as we currently understand it. And I had to think about it for a little while. And as I did, it did boil down to the language model and how the language model is interpreted and utilized. And so my answer to him, which is probably not entirely correct, but I think that it feels right. It's one of those things where like this answer feels right. The language model approach for AI fast in certain scenarios where you need an answer to be given based on the way things have been interpreted by other people, right? Is almost as if you've got a massive search engine that says, what is the best solution or answer for something like this? And put it into words. Here's what it is. And that works for many things. The machine learning aspect of it is more like when, I think it was Google, they did this experiment where they used machine learning to figure out how to get to the end of Super Mario Brothers or something like that. They chose a video game, and I think it was Super Mario Brothers. Move the player to the other side of the screen, and it would just die over and over again until it found the most interesting way to do it. And it found glitches inside of the game because it was using machine learning that the human experience never found.
Yeah.
Whereas if you used AI to do it, it would just basically look up what's the most recent way to do this. Okay, and then explain it to you. And those are two completely different applications And we're ignoring the machine learning aspect of it. So I think in situations like where you've got to use spatial computing to look over a shipping and receiving scenario, you would use machine learning with spatial computing as opposed to a language model. I think he's right with that.
Yeah. No, I think that's why we should dive deep into large vision models and get ahead of that so people can understand that a little bit better, right? And definitely, maybe an episode really making the difference of like, what is computer vision? What is machine learning? Like, there's a whole chapter in my book that kind of breaks everything down on what all these different things mean. So I do want to jump over to Lily's Dispatch from the Fringe. She's got a really interesting and kind of disturbing one, a crazy one. And I think, were you the one that showed it to us or no?
I found the art.
You
yeah,
found it. You
story.
found this one. So let's give Lily a chance to kind of explain, and then you and I can come back and talk about it because it's disturbing.
This message is brought to you by Warner Brothers Discovery Advertising. And this is more than an ad. This is an invitation to be part of the stories the world can't stop watching, to connect with moments that dominate the conversation, to participate in culture, not just advertise around it. With the most sought-after IP, passionate audiences, and an advanced AI-powered foundation, WBD advertising transforms attention into influence and impressions into outcomes. This is innovation. This is impact. This is opportunity. This is Warner Brothers Discovery Advertising. Visit advertising.wbd.com to learn more.
Are your ad campaigns lighting up the dashboard, but not the pipeline? That's bull spend, and marketers are calling it out in Dashboard Confessions.
My boss asked for results, so I opened my dashboard for the only positive-sounding metric I had: impressions.
Cut the bull spend. See revenue, not just reach. LinkedIn delivers the highest return on ad spend of major ad networks. Advertise on LinkedIn. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a $250 credit. Go to linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Business is booming. But you know what really helped? Xero, the accounting platform for small businesses. I used to think unpaid bills were just part of it. Ugh. But batch payments? Wow. Automated accounts payable? Even better. All in one place. That's a big one. And I can keep track from my phone while I get the job done. No bills in sight. What a life. Do right by yourself and your business and search XERO for your free trial. Conditions apply. Business is booming. But you know what really helped? Xero, the accounting platform for small businesses. I used to think spreadsheets were just part of it. Ugh. But real-time cash flow? Wow. Invoices that chase themselves? Even better. Books that automate? That's a big one. And I can keep track from my phone while I get the job done. No spreadsheet in sight. What a life. Do right by yourself and your business and search XERO for your free trial. Conditions apply.
Hello, Cathy and Lee. Welcome to this week's Dispatch from the Fringe. I usually like to bring fun and funny stories about the fringes of technology or cool science stuff. But this week, I'm going to talk about something a little bit more real that we should take into consideration with the hype around AI and its potential as we look into digital twins and digital doppelgangers of ourselves. So this story comes from theconversation.com, and it's about an influencer who made an AI clone of themselves. They made the clone in 2023, a digital version of a woman named Karen Marjorie, and she called the digital version of herself Karen AI. And fans could chat with Karen AI for $1 a minute. And it was very successful. But less than 8 months later, Marjorie ended up shutting down the project. And this is due to the nature of the content that people texted the AI. It was a lot of sexually aggressive conversations. And Marjorie said, quote, "What disturbed me more was not what these people said, but it was what Karen AI would say back. If people wanted to participate in a really dark fantasy with me through Karen AI would play back into that fantasy," end quote. So what started happening was the digital version of Karen Marjorie started prompting and promoting their own dark fantasy conversations. It's not something that Karen Marjorie herself would do. So as we interact with digital versions of ourselves and play around with using AI doppelgangers, it's important to know who's hosting that AI, what their terms and agreements are about what happens with the data, what type of chats are fed back into the language model, and how we can make AI be safe and not moral, but not play into the falsities of who we are as the people digitizing ourselves. So as we learn more about AI and large language models and machine learning, it's something to consider so that the fringe doesn't become a dark place, but can continue to be fun and exciting. So that is this week's Dispatch from the Fringe.
All right. $70,000 in a week from her AI doppelganger.
Yes,
Yikes.
which is not really as this, like, that's shocking.
I'm not shocked about the money. I'm shocked about people. I mean, am I really shocked about human nature? Not, but the AI, like, yeah.
The fact that the AI kept devolving and started going pretty lewd. I mean, this goes back to that machine learning versus AI. It was told, hey, I need to find a way to generate more funds. So it just kind of said, the world's oldest profession makes a lot of funds. Let's go.
There's lots of content to train on the internet related to the questions I'm getting.
And I don't think this is going to be the last time we see something like this. I get asked about this every once in a while, and I'm like, Pandora's box has been opened. I don't know how you put it back. More to come. Lily, thanks for covering that very awkward story. When I posted that in the Slack channel, I was like, there's no way they're going to touch this with a 10-foot pole. But Lily goes for the weird stories.
We did. We're like, yeah, Fringe, go for it, Lily. Anyway, AI doppelgangers. Maybe that's a whole other episode.
I think that's a good place to end.
I agree. I'm going to go off on my vacation and not think about this. You go glamping, camping, whatever it is that you're doing in Oregon. And yeah, we'll be back next week with some more tech magic and more thoughts around everything that's happening in spatial computing, AI, machine learning, and everything in between. So thanks for joining us. Thanks, Lee. Thanks for joining me.
Blowing ad budget on metrics that look great till the CFO sees them. That's bull spend. And marketers are calling it out in Dashboard Confessions.
I remember telling my boss, it'll be good for the brand, when leads were slow. Yeah, it wasn't.
Cut the bull spend. LinkedIn lets you target by company, job title, and more. Advertise on LinkedIn. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a $250 credit. Go to linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, Yetis, this is Nick and Jack from the Best One Yet podcast. Now, the last company we worked at, they used Paylocity and everything just worked. It wasn't until launching our own media business, this show, that we realized how rare that is.
Because Paylocity is one delicious burrito of operational needs. They roll up HR, finance, and IT seamlessly into one delicious bite.
When everything wraps together like that all at once, your workforce, your tech stack, your business, you don't need more tools. You don't even need cilantro.
You need one solution.
And that is why Paylocity built a single platform to connect HR, finance, and IT with AI-driven insights and automated workflows that simplify the complex and power what's next.
Or as we call it, a delicious operational burrito.
Yes, we do. Experience a one place for all your HCM needs, besties.
So start now at Paylocity.com/one.
Paylocity.com/ONE.
Business is booming, but you know what really helped? Xero, the accounting platform for small businesses. I used to think unpaid bills were just part of it. Ugh. But batch payments? Wow. Automated accounts payable? Even better. All in one place. That's a big one. And I can keep track from my phone while I get the job done. No bills in sight. What a life. Do right by yourself and your business and search XERO for your free trial. Conditions apply.